There is a famous story about St. Ignatius of Loyola. In 1522, just a few months after his conversion, after he experienced God's love, he was on pilgrimage from Spain to Jerusalem riding on a mule. And on the journey, he met a Muslim man. And they started debating about the Blessed Virgin Mary. And it got very heated, a strong disagreement. So the Muslim man went on ahead to a village, and St. Ignatius felt that he hadn't defended the honor of our Blessed Mother. And it bothered him so much, he thought to himself, should I go ahead and stab the man with my dagger? So you have to remember at this time, St. Ignatius is a soldier. Slide, please. Yeah, so basically he wrestles back and forth, should he do it or not, and he can't make a decision. So eventually he decides he's going to let the reins on the mule go slack. He's just going to let them loose. He's going to let the mule decide. As soon as he gets to the fork in the road, if the mule goes to the village, he'll stab the man. If the mule doesn't, he'll let it go. And in the autobiography where he writes this down, he says that God had the mule go away from the village, so he didn't do it. But then there's a comment. It says that he's spiritually blind. Now that means he loves God, but he's not virtuous. And he's still following his feelings. So today, we're just considering if we're spiritually stuck, if we're not making decisions according to God's plan. So we're beginning a new year. We're meditating on the beautiful truth. God has a plan for us. And because he has a plan, we have to respond. We have to cooperate. In the second reading, St. Paul says, when the fullness of time had come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, in order to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption to sonship. So that phrase, the fullness of time, it refers to a point in God's plan. He has this beautiful plan. He created us for a reason, so that we could be with him. And we're always resisting him. We're pushing him aside. For thousands of years, humanity's pushing him aside. But then at the right moment in his plan, he sends his Son to redeem us so that just one person in humanity will love him perfectly, obviously his Son, Jesus. And it's so beautiful that there's a second person who loves him perfectly, our Mother Mary. And that was God's plan for her, to be the Mother of God. And we celebrate that every January 1st, beginning of the new year. We want to celebrate she's the Mother of God. She's also our mother. Now, because that was God's plan for her, that means that she had to cooperate. A young man named Joshua Miller once asked a priest, how do you know God's will? And the priest said, it's actually pretty easy. And Joshua said, easy? Do you guys think knowing God's will is easy? Right, so the priest said, no, it's easy. And Joshua, like a lot of us, he didn't think so. So the priest said, yeah, it's easy. You pray to know God's will. You consider the possible choices. Then you make a decision and you go for it. And Joshua said he was struck by the refreshing simplicity that God gives us a power to act. So God gives us a choice at the beginning of this new year. We can live on purpose according to his plan, or we can live by accident and just let circumstances in our life just determine what's going to happen. Our principal, Mr. Perry, at our school, he has 6 children and a very intense job. And for most of his life, he was always reacting. Whatever people asked him to do at the school, he just has to do it. Now, sometimes obviously that was God's will, but it can't be clearly because the school wasn't growing under that approach, and he wasn't growing spiritually. And so for the past few years, he takes 30 minutes every Sunday to pray and then write down what he believes is God's will. And he asks the question, what does God want for his spiritual life, his prayer life that week, for his wife, his children, and the school? So when he goes into the school, there are going to be a lot of problems that come up. And sometimes those problems will take precedence, sometimes not, because, hey, we're all aware. Sometimes we have little problems in our life. We let them blow up to become like a crisis. But when you know ahead of time what is God's plan, you think, no, wait, that's still a little problem. So now according to this approach, he's growing spiritually, the school is growing spiritually, and he's still able to handle all those little problems that come his way. So knowing God's will, in some ways, is simpler than we think. We're the ones who complicate things. We expect God to give us absolute certainty because we don't fully trust him. We're not having that confidence. Our Mother Mary did not always have an angel appear to her and say, you must do this, as in the time when St. Gabriel appeared to her, telling her she would be the mother of God. For most of her life, like us, like all the saints, she had to pray, consider the options, make a decision. St. John Paul II once wrote to young people saying that God gives us the task of creating our plan in life. So obviously we have to pray and we want to know God's will, but he's given us a lot of freedom to move things forward. In the reading, St. Paul says that Jesus was sent so that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because we are sons and daughters of God, that means we have freedom. St. Paul adds, so you are no longer a slave but son. So slaves have no freedom. Children have freedom. Slaves don't have freedom. And our culture often acts like we're slaves. That's why there's kind of like a culture of blame. A lot of us, we blame, and a lot of our culture, we blame the media. We blame the economy. We blame President Trump and tariffs. We blame racism. We say we're too busy. That's true. Some of those things, they are real factors. But you can't let that detract from the fact we've got freedom. God has given us this incredible power to co-create with him. So this obviously doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. God still has a plan. So how can we best co-create with God? And the answer is, try to help as many people come to Jesus as possible. Try to help them grow spiritually. St. Ignatius of Loyola never intended to found the Jesuits. God never said to him, found the Jesuits. So how did it happen? It's now the largest order in the whole church. He prayed, he considered the options, then he made a decision. St. Ignatius's first goal was just to go to Jerusalem, to the place where Jesus had lived. And that's a beautiful decision. But the decision was still focused mainly on himself. After a short time, he was sent back to Europe. And because of those different circumstances, he changed his plan. He started trying to teach people spiritually. Good, very good. But then he got in trouble with the Inquisition because he had no formal training. So he changed his plan again. He went to Paris to study theology. And while there, he met 6 other men who also wanted to evangelize, give their whole lives to God. And they didn't intend to found the Jesuits. They, again, wanted to go to Jerusalem and evangelize there. But for 1 year, they could not find a boat to take them to Jerusalem, so they changed their plan again. They went to Rome, presented themselves to the Pope, and submitted, wherever you will send us, wherever you think the greatest need is, we'll go. So that's 18 years between the time when he thought about stabbing that man and the formation of the Jesuits. So the key questions he asked were, what will give the greatest glory to God? What will help save the most souls? At the beginning of this new year, we tend to focus, how can I make my life better? I think that's a bit spiritually short-sighted. The question we want to ask is, how can I give the greatest glory to God? And that question includes, how can I lead the most people to Jesus? And it also includes, how can I improve my own life? This doesn't mean every decision we're going to make this year is going to automatically be perfect, but this approach to discerning God's will It's way better than just letting things in life happen to us and we reacting. Ever since Mr. Perry started planning his week with God's help, trying to figure out what is God's will this week, he's become a better husband, a better disciple, father, and leader. God has a beautiful plan for us this year. And like our Mother Mary, our job is to pray, consider the choices, and then make a decision and go for it.